Today, we are not meeting as correspondents or editors or reporters. We are here meeting as a community to remember a legacy of a friend, a profound partners, colleagues who have served our clubs, who have served the profession, what we are all doing and serving right now. And he left us to heaven. And we thought we should remember him in this day and remember his contribution to the profession that we all are enjoying and practicing. By remembering him, we welcome our friends on the dais. They don't need introduction. You already know on my right hand, Mr. Satish Jacob, a veteran journalist who was an old friend. Gillian, also a life partner with our profound member. His cousin, if I'm not mistaken, Katrina, and our secretary and our managing committee members, Debina, on this. So we welcome you all. Before we start this, we are going to ask friends to speak for 3 minutes on his legacy. I would request everybody to have a minute of silence. Please stand up. Let's give it for his departed soul. Thank you. I can start with you, Gillian.
Yeah.
You feel more comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay, speak.
Just 3 minutes?
Take 3 to 5 minutes. you have.
Okay, so let's see. I'd like to thank you all very much for coming here tonight. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. And to the Foreign Correspondents Club for calling me here. Mark, I think, was president here for one term, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And it's not 3 weeks since she passed away. And I must say, I and the whole Tully family have been totally overwhelmed by the many tributes paid to him, both here and abroad. And for the many people who've written to us with memories of him, of how he helped him, and of his kindness. And I will say particularly of the tributes in India, it once again proves the wonderful openness and generosity of speech, openness, kindness, and generosity of spirit of the people of India. And I and all his family are very grateful for all those who have written to us and written of him. Now, Mark had many hats over his long life. He did a lot with his life. And he was first and foremost, I mean, he started off before he went to university. He had to do 2 years because it was necessary. And after he studied history and theology, he went on to be a teacher, which he enjoyed, but he felt it should move on. So then he worked with a charity, and that charity concentrated on housing old people. And he worked with that and really enjoyed that, but there was a falling out at the top. So then he applied for a post in the personnel department of the BBC in London. So Mark's first encounter with the BBC was in the personnel department, which he found dreadfully boring. So when a chance arrived, a post opened up as assistant representative in the office in Delhi, and that was an administrative post. He went and applied for it, and he'd been a kid in India. And in India then, as a kid in the Raj, you were not meant to learn Indian languages. But he had a grandfather who was a bit naughty, who used to teach him on the quiet. And so they said to him, you were in India as a child, do you know any Indian languages? To which he replied, well, I can recite this. Mafati mafati mai, kone me beti, khai malai, ek bada makra, kapre ko pakra, bhag gayi mafati mai. So on the strength of this, he joined the personnel department. He had a job in India. And that job also, he found it was a job without much meat to it. So he began to do some journalistic work. And his first ever radio feature was to cover the Statesman vintage car rally from, which you'll all remember, from old brick-built Statesman's house down to Sona. And that was his first break into journalism. When his stint ended in 1969, he went back to head the Hindi and Bengali services of the BBC External Services, which had a wide audience in India. And after that, he moved upstairs. It was all part of the Eastern Service to the talks unit. And he arrived in the talks unit, which meant he was doing full journalistic work, sort of quite longer pieces rather than shorter reports, and with a little more analysis, at the same time as the Bangladesh war. Now, it was very, very difficult to report out of Bangladesh during the Pakistan crackdown, as you'll all know. And in fact, the BBC stringer, Nizamuddin, was picked up when he was having lunch and taken away by masked men and killed. So the BBC was reliant to a large extent for what filtered down and from their sources what got through to the UK. And at that stage, Mark was writing the talks, which were then rebroadcast not only in English, but in Bangla, Hindi, Urdu, etc. And so I think that's where he began to make his name in the subcontinent. At the end of the Bangladesh war, he went to Bangladesh. He met Mujib, who in fact became a good friend of his. And Mark could speak to him very honestly. And then after that, he became for the first time chief of bureau plus correspondent in Delhi. And BBC was listened to, especially at times of crisis. It had a wide listenership, but during crisis, because the media, the electronic media then was entirely government owned in this part of the world and run. So if anybody wanted an alternative point of view, of course, there was Voice of America, there was Deutsche Welle, but BBC was listened to more. And so Mark began in a much slimmed down BBC office. Of course, he was, as everybody knows, he was thrown out during the emergency for not signing up to censorship. And when he came back, he started working with Satish. But the BBC office then was very, very slim. It consisted of Mark, Satish, and Lorna Joseph, and then Avril Turner, who was the administrative person, and a wonderful chap called Yedu Nandan, who was employed as a driver, but actually did not have that skill, but was a very good cartoonist. But what the BBC did have, okay, they had a very small Delhi office, but they had a large, extensive network of extremely good Indian stringers across the country. And Satish, as everybody knows probably here, was the one when Mark was away who covered and broke the story of Mrs. Gandhi's assassination. But when Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated, the person Mark turned for a first-hand account was the veteran statesman's correspondent in Chennai, Sam Rajappa. And these were wonderful people who really built the BBC. And Mark always appreciated them and always said that this was the case. Now, I must also mention the transistor. Am I okay? Can I go on?
Please go ahead. Fine.
Transistor. Mark was a beneficiary of the transistor revolution. Transistor radios were cheap, ubiquitous, and shortwave was not like the internet we have today. Government couldn't shut it down. So he had a reach, and he became a household name thanks to the language services, thanks to Hindi, Urdu, Bengali, and so forth. And Mark was always the first to acknowledge this. And he filed, and there was another interesting thing about the BBC office. Although Mark was doing news, he was not employed by news. There was another apartment called International Relations. And that gave Mark the freedom to report mainly almost as a local broadcaster for South Asia. And it also gave him the ability to stay on longer than most people. There are very few correspondents who were allowed to stay in a place long enough to get a real handle on the place that they were. And I must say also that for Mark, radio, he was above being an author or a journalist or whatever, he considers himself a broadcaster. And although he was chief of bureau here for 22 years, for longer than that, he was known and loved in the UK for a spiritual anthology program, which he developed called Something Understood, which had a large, loyal, and very devoted following. So, and that was after he resigned from the BBC because he had differences with the management. And Mark's spiritual quest was something which was a deep part of him. And his favorite book, I think himself, was a book called India's Unending Journey, which he wanted to call The Certainty of Uncertainty, which was about his basically what he had learned, a lot of it, what he had learned from India. And he loved radio. As I know, he made many, many radio documentaries, and he did television, but he liked television, but not nearly as much as he liked radio. He believed in radio. He believed in the intimacy of the medium. As he said, the picture's always better on radio. But one film he did enjoy, and here I'll finish more or less with this, was he and a friend, Nick Lehrer, did Out of a Labour of Love, made a long documentary on the last days of Indian steam, traveling across the country, hanging off steam trains in all the most remote places that they could find. And that, I think, was Mark, because Mark loved trains, he loved steam trains, he loved beer, he loved company. He was a man who loved life altogether. Yeah, so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please present yourself. Can you speak something on this?
So thank you all for coming. Thank you for your interest. Thank you to everybody who has given what I've dubbed a tsunami of tributes to Mark. It has been quite overwhelming and deeply heartwarming for the family. We're devastated at the loss of Mark, and we miss him terribly. But everybody's love and support and admiration has gone a long way to ease the pain. And of course, we're immensely proud. I'm not a journalist, but I was just going to make an observation, really. Mark was not only a sort of flagship as far as journalism was concerned. He was a flagship in our family. For years, I grew up with the knowledge that my cousin Mark was something special. And I just want to reflect on the effect that India has had on our family, that we've had generations. Julie knows how many generations, having worked on the family history, we've had generations on Mark and my, on the side of the family in which we're related. We go back to the 18th century even. And some of our ancestors were perhaps not the best products of the Raj. Some of them were up to questionable things. Some of them probably did some good, but somehow, somewhere, India seems to have entered our DNA, and it's kind of no accident that within 2 kilometers around Nizamuddin and Lajpat Nagar, there were, until we lost Mark, there were 3 relatives were living, and that's because 3 British relatives, with Mark's son Sam, Emma having married Peter Kerker, an Indian citizen, obviously, and Sam, his son, coming to India frequently. It got into us somehow, and it was no more fully expressed, perhaps, than in Mark and in what he did. I think that's all I'll say. I thank you all again, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you. Satish, I think you spent the maximum time with our friends.
I don't know him as Tilly and cousin said, and I'm not a very good speaker.
So it's okay. Come closer and just tell me what you know. What did you have any good
You will beat me up because you will not get more from me.
No, it's fine. Enjoy it. You enjoy your talk.
Well, I'm not very fond of talking, but when it comes to Mark Tully, I would like to tell you one thing. All of you are sitting here and us, and we are all speaking to you in English. Mark's passion was not just English. He loved Hindustani. And whenever he met anybody, from the smallest person who is nobody, he will engage him in talking. And he will keep on talking, and you could see the expression on Mark's face, how delighted he was talking to an ordinary person from the street. He wanted to know more about India. He wanted to know more about Hindi, and not just Hindi, all other languages. And he used to read a newspaper in Hindi. And Marx, I mean, I don't want to discuss everything what Marx said in his um, short Hindustani because he used some words which I don't want to use here. But he was a delightful person as a man, and who talked about news. Now, news something we all talk about news. We talk about intellectual news, but Mark Tully's news when he used to speak or write for the everyday person, an ordinary person. He wrote for ordinary people who were not intellectual, but they loved his Hindi and they loved what he said in this thing. This was a wonderful thing about that gentleman, Mark Tully. And I learned a lot from him. When I joined him, I just met him. I was I was traveling to from Delhi to Hyderabad, and he was sitting there for the same plane inside. So we just met, and I told him that I'm going to Hyderabad. And he said, I'm going to. You know why he was going to Hyderabad? There were terrible floods in Hyderabad. Terrible floods. They were one of the worst floods in India, and he was going to cover that. And I was working with the people who were victims of the flood. So, and then we just chatted formally, and we just arrived there in Hyderabad. Mark kept on ringing me and said, Satish, I want to go there, and can you come with me? So I used to go there, did everything. And, we just became friends, but not, I didn't know much about his reputation as a journalist at that time. I was a young man. And then once the whole thing was over, I helped him with a little bit here and there for what was going on, how many people were affected, who were affected, and whether they're going to get any help from the government or not. Unfortunately, hardly anybody got any help from the government in those floods. They lost their homes, they lost everything. And Mark wrote about all that. And then just 4 or 5 days later, when he went back to Delhi, I got a call from him. He said, I want you to come to Delhi and meet me. I said, well, I'm going to come after 10 days. He said, no, come before that. I said, okay, I'll come. So I came just 3 days before that. I went to his office and he sat down, he had a cup of tea and everything. There were 2 or 3 people in the office. And then straight away he said, I want you to join me. I didn't know what he was saying. He said, I want you to join me and be my assistant. So I said, will I be doing any journalism? You will only be doing journalism, nothing else. I said, oh, thank you. So I came and worked with him. And the thing was with him, I learned a lot from him, although he was in my country and he was writing on India. And when he used to record those things, I used to come and sit down and I used to, God, he has so much to learn from. He knew more than anything I knew. And then I became his assistant as a journalist. And whatever I learned as a journalist from him, I became a journalist because of that. So for me, he was a guru, but not just a normal guru. We used to have a lot of fights with others. In Punjab once, we were covering Punjab in those days. And Punjab was notorious because it was a very violent place. And there was a taxi driver, that's Sardarji. And what happened? I don't know what happened, but Mark Tully had an argument with that guy. And Mark Tully was not just spoke English; he used to speak Punjabi and Hindi, everything. And he told him something in Hindi, and that guy got very angry because he used some words which were not supposed to be spoken. And he started saying things. And then Mark said, "Talk to this guy. He's getting very upset." So I said, "Why are you so upset about it?" He said, then he told me in Punjabi, कहता ਤੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ और ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਾਂ ਭੈਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ करते ਸੀ मैंने कहा ओ यार ये तेरा दोस्त है तू भी तो ऐसी बातें करता है लोगों से कहना हाँ मैं भी करता हूँ मैंने कहा फिर व्हाट इज योर व्हाई आर यू एंग्री विद हिम वी ऑल स्पीक लाइक दैट then he calmed down but Mark was just like a Punjabi with him you know not a reputed English correspondent but he was speaking to him like a Hindustani and a Punjabi and that thing went very well with that guy. They became friends. So Mark Tully learned a lot and he spoke. And you could see wherever he went, within half an hour, even 15 minutes, he will file a story from there. Just like that, just speaking at people, looking at people, and seeing their conditions and all. And he'll speak something which I was stunned. I was totally stunned. Where the hell he has got all this thing? And he wrote, and it's beautiful. And everybody read him. So Mark Tully was full of confidence about Hindi and Punjabi. So he was a man, I think I learned a lot from him. And he gave me a confidence, which I never had in the beginning. I had a confidence because of Mark that I could write my dispatches to London. And they were fine if they were accepted. I learned from him, and whatever I did, I learned everything from Mark. He was somebody I can never forget because he taught me which I never got even in academics. Simple things. And he was a very honest person in every way. Very honest. Anyway, I can write a book about Mark Tully, but I am not going to tell you everything about Mark Tully because half the things I shouldn't be telling you about.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think my interaction with Mark Tully was in the early 80s when I came to India and I was working at the Sana with Syrian Arab News Agency. My first posting was with Sana. And we used to meet quite often, but we never had this club. This club was in 1991. In fact, we used to meet at Taj Mahal Singh Hotel and sometime in some of the New York Times, Washington Post, or Globe and Mail in present, we used to have some kind of interaction. And we were very few journalists those days. And I believe, I mean, after I met with him, my first book I bought in India was No Food Stop in India because I didn't understand India very much. He had written a very small, nice book that time, which really, I enjoyed reading it. My English wasn't that good. I learned English in Hindi in India. So I continue. So we continue to be good friends. We used to meet very quite often in Satish parties sometime. Sometime we meet at Said Naqvi's house. We had a very good relation together. And and my last meeting was with him last year. I think last year we had a very good evening. Then I said, Mark, look, I'm known as the Mark Tully of the Arab world. And he started laughing. I said, that's what? Because you are the longest serving foreign correspondent, and I'm now taking over as the longest serving foreign correspondent in India. So he was laughing. We were enjoying the drink together. And then he got sick. We wanted to give him a life achievement award. I made somebody calling Gillian. She said he's a bedridden. He cannot do it. They contacted her, but we couldn't because he wasn't in a good health. But I was on the CNN TV 18 2 days before his demise, and I was actually on a program chatting with the top anchors in the program. And he said, "Hell, well, here is welcome to Mark Tully of the Arab world." And here you go, 2 days he passed on. So it was a very shocking news for us, and we lost him. But I'm sure that his legacy will leave Satish, Gillian, and you will have always something to remember about him. Not only in the club, not only anywhere you go, he will make himself presence and felt by everybody in the room. And I am very happy. The radio program he used to do it all the time, nothing written as well. He would have speaking orators, good orator, and he would have had the things in his mind and saying it on the radio. And being a radio correspondent myself for more than 3 decades, I understand how difficult sometimes if you don't have anything written in the hand, how you have to say, how to you have to communicate with your audience. So he was a remarkable person, and I'm sure we all enjoyed him and his presence. Uh, I wanted to ask anyone of you if anybody would like or remember him or met with him. If anybody would like to have a word, please feel free to come and speak. Yes, please, Madhu. Would like to come to the audience here, you can come to the podium and speak. Thank you.
Okay, so there was this Union Carbide gas leakage, and we were all in Bhopal. A lot of journalists were reporting there. I was with Hindustan, and somehow I just, uh, while I was reporting, where the gas was coming out and there were fumes, everybody pushing towards it, and I was next to Mark. I was about to move, caught me by the shoulder. He says, "You are not the story. You stand here and watch." And then he said, "Live another day to tell a new story." And this is what I realized when the journalists get into the war, and I am standing here. There is shell here, there is shell. They become the story. They're supposed to actually sit aside. And this is one thing I learned from Mark. You don't become the story, you stand aside and you tell the story. We were together those days, and I really watched him very closely. Now, there's another thing which I used to meet him very often at Aruna Vasudev's place. Very often we used to have evenings. And um, before COVID, on Christmas Day, he had the most delightful BBC radio program on what is the meaning of Christmas. I heard that, and I always wanted to re-listen to it, and I couldn't. It was superb. If anybody gets an opportunity to listen to that, mythology, how mythology becomes part of our culture and strengthens us. It was so beautifully explained. He had a very logical, very theological, and very spiritual way of telling some of these things. Third thing which I wanted to share, which I will regret for the rest of my life. I'll get in touch with Lillian later. I used to always tell him I want to do PhD in one particular aspect of journalism. I want to discuss here. And he would say, "Come, jot down your points, and then I'll tell you how to go about it." That never happened. That's that thing I'll take back. But I could spin across those ideas with Julian at someday. Thank you.
I think, yes, yes, please, take the mic. Introduce yourself.
Myself, SS Dogra. I'm author, journalist, and bureau for magazine Himalayan from Delhi itself. Thank you, sir, giving me the opportunity to say my own views about great man. And I had the privilege to meet him. I think in one event that was also in association with FCC there in Kamini auditorium with Kids University. And fortunately, I presented him my one debut book that is Media Can Do Wonders in Students' Life. I cannot forget that meeting with him because he really encouraged me. And only 5 words he said: please continue this passion in your journalism as well as in your writing. That was really golden words for me. I cannot forget him. And my upcoming book, You Can Rise and Shine, I dedicate that book to Mark Saridhar. Thank you very much. And one more thing I just want to, it's really great honor for me also being the member of this FCC. And on my just request, Dr. Awad sir means accepted this to means organize this prayer meeting as per my knowledge. Thank you very much, sir.
Um, thank you all. Anybody else would like to say something, or we continue with the we proceed? Okay. All right. Okay. I can ask our secretary to read their condolence resolution, please.
Begin with, let me say that I had met Sir Mark Tully quite a number of times, and I think 99% of those number of times at Satish Jadav's house over in a dinner or in a lunch, as Satish said that he loved his beer and the type of talks that we people are sharing ourselves. Always, and I'm actually grateful to Satish from that point of view because I met him a number of times there as well as at IIC, always with Mr. Jack. Anyway, coming back to this thing, we have in FCC, our governing committee, we have passed condolence resolution. I'm reading it out. The members of the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia meeting in a solemn session, place on record, deep sorrow at the passing of Sir William Mark Tully, a respected colleague, a valued member of the international journalistic community. Whereas the late Mark served journalism with professionalism, integrity, and a strong commitment to the principles of independent reporting and freedom of expression. And whereas his work, intellectual spirit, and dedication to the profession certainly earned the respect of press peers across cultures and nationalities, contributing meaningfully to the public discourse. And whereas his passing represents a significant loss to the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia and to the wider community of foreign correspondents and media professionals. Now, therefore, be it reserved that the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia expresses sincere condolences to the family, friends, and colleagues of Mark and conveys its deepest sympathy during this time of mourning. To the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia places on record its appreciation of Sir Tully's professional contributions and personal qualities, which will be remembered with respect and gratitude. 3. The Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia honors the memory of Sir Mark Tully by reaffirming its commitment to the core of journalism, that is accuracy, independence, and responsibility, which he exemplified. Uh, we further reserve that a copy of this resolution be formally conveyed to the bereaved family as an expression of the Foreign Correspondents Club solidarity and respect. Adopted unanimously on 11th February 2026, the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I may ask Dibina to also speak on this. Dibina also she used to work freelancing for the BBC as well.
Thank you so much. So I work for Mr. as a presenter, correspondent, and somebody who's seen what the legend Sir William Mark Tully was for a lot of young journalists. When I joined the BBC, I remember he was just sitting outside of the reception. He must be waiting for his program to start. And I just walked out. Kids in the profession. I was excited to see him, and I was wondering, should I go and just introduce myself? I mean, you talk to Sir William Mark Tully, and he's in front of me. So I was completely starry-eyed. And as they say, you should not meet your heroes in real life. But clearly, we didn't talk about Sir William Mark Tully. The moment I said, I've just joined the organization and I've heard so much of your work, and you sort of inspired me to be a foreign correspondent as well. So thank you for that. And he just was smiling. He shook my hands, and it was probably a very quick meeting because he had to go for his program, which lasted about less than a minute. But when I shook his hands, I felt that hopefully some of that stardust rose, and even I'm able to do some justice to my profession. I mean, that was the aura of the gentleman who had so much experience, you just know, such a legacy. But he spared those 20, 30 seconds smiling and meeting a newbie who's never met before, and inspiring me. That day was the best day of my life because I went to met Sir William Mark Tully. So the humility of the human being is what has stayed with me. Somebody who's achieved so much and did not need to just make that meeting so special for me. Going through social media, there's so many other people who worked in the BBC and outside who put a picture with him, a selfie with him, and people who for whom he has stayed, his stories have stayed. And in a world, I think, where we debate divisions quite so much, and as journalists, we are quite skeptical about finding that there could be somebody who's connecting the world. I think Sir William Mark Tully is an example who has led the community by his choices of profession, his choices of story. Somebody who came to India, adapted the culture, the country, the people so much that now we are all here remembering him and also in that way. So I'm deeply humbled to be on this dais, and thank you so much for everyone, including me in this. I just want to read out the resolution which the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia's committee has now adopted, which is the resolution on name of the auditorium. The auditorium of the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia should be officially designated as the Sir William Mark Tully Auditorium. But this naming is a permanent tribute to Sir William Mark Tully's professional legacy, personal endeavor, and contribution to the international journalistic community. And the FCC of South Asia shall ensure that appropriate signage is now going to be here, and which will reflect this designation. And we just want to thank all of you for being here on this special occasion.
Thank you so much. Can I ask, Venkat has come late, but would you like to remember our old colleagues, Mark? While you're sitting, we'll give you the mic. Give the mic to. Yeah. Venkat is our veteran journalist and former president and advisor in the India, the International Association of Press Clubs as well. So he has been contributing a lot, and we share lots of history together with him also.
अच्छा ठीक है yeah okay okay
You like to sit here though, because then everybody can see you.
Yeah, I think that is the best. Thank you. Devina.
friends and colleagues today not just as mourners, but as members of a profession that was shaped and elevated by Sir Mark Tully. Born in Kolkata, educated in Britain, and professionally rooted in India, Sir Mark was in many ways a bridge between nations, between cultures, and perhaps most importantly, between power and the public. For over 2 decades as Delhi bureau chief of the BBC, his voice became one of the most trusted narrators of India's modern history. Many of us in this room grew up listening to that unmistakable steady cadence. When events were chaotic, his reporting was calm. When politics was shrill, his tone was measured. When rumors swirled, he waited for facts. He covered the emergency, Operation Blue Star, the assassination of Indira Gandhi, insurgencies, elections, reforms, moments when history felt raw and unsettled. Yet he never rushed to judgment. He did not perform outrage. He did not chase noise. He listened. And perhaps that is the lesson he leaves for us. Sir Mark understood that journalism is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It is about being the most reliable one. He traveled beyond Delhi's power corridors. He went to villages, small towns, forgotten districts. He understood that India cannot be explained from a studio alone. It must be walked, heard, and absorbed. His books, No Full Stops in India, India in Slow Motion, reflected that deeper engagement. They were not dispatches from above, they were reflections from within. For journalists in Delhi, his career poses a quiet challenge. Are we patient enough? Are we curious enough? Are we fair enough? Do we listen as carefully as we speak? He showed that integrity is not ideological, it is discipline, it is careful, it is rooted in respect for fact and for people. Though British by passport, Sir Mark earned something far more difficult, the trust of India. Trust, as we know, is the most fragile currency in our profession. As we remember Sir Mark today, let us honor him not only with tributes but with practice. Let us strive for clarity over noise, context over sensation, and humility over ego. Sir Mark Tully's voice may no longer be on the airwaves, but his standard remains before us. May we be worthy of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat, for the lovely word. Distinguished colleagues, member of the Foreign Correspondent Club, ladies and gentlemen, you heard all these stories about Mark. So, in recognition of his lasting contribution to our profession and to this Foreign Correspondent Club of South Asia, the following formal resolution adopted by the members it is my honor on behalf of the managing committee and all members to announce that the club auditorium will be henceforth be named Sir Mark Tully's Auditorium. This decision is not a symbolic alone, it's an intentional and enduring. The auditorium is where ideas are exchanged, difficult questions are asked, and history is debated. Precisely the space in which Mark believed journalism must be live and live. By associating his name with this whole, we ensure that his legacy remain part of our daily institutional life. May this auditorium remain or remind future generation of journalism and journalists of integrity matters. Independent at a cost worth paying, and that the written and spoken word carries responsibility as much as power. On behalf of the Foreign Correspondent Club of South Asia, we extend our deepest respect to his memory and our sincere condolences to the family and loved one. His name will remain with us, not as a memory alone, but as a standard. And as we conclude, let us carry forward the values of our colleagues stood for the truth, courage, and dignity into our daily work. That is the most meaningful tribute we can offer. On behalf of the FCC, I thank you all for being here. This meeting is now concluded. You can also see the picture of him will be released just now, and the name and the auditorium will be displayed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Satish.
I couldn't swallow my own saliva, but you are hearing about old friend losing it. It's difficult. Thank you very much for coming out. Please, let's see remove the picture and we can all see.
This is one which is fitting because that's where the is.
And the gate also, we can see the plate. We put his name. We just reveal the plate. Neil. Let's go for this.